Hey everyone, and welcome back to my tutorial series on how to build a desktop application style object-oriented Discord bot in Python. So last time we set up our database, so things are saving to the database when we change values, and they're retrieving from the database when we restart our bot. Awesome, excellent. So what's next? Well, I want to go ahead and add another section, okay? So let's see here. We're done with the details section. That's success. We should put a check, not a cross. And at a glance has a lot of data points, so I want to move over to something easy for now. I want to go ahead and talk about the personality class. Okay, so this is actually going to be pretty straightforward because ultimately this is going to be comprised of two lists of strings because we can break down likes and dislikes into string values and just store those in lists. We have a raw string, which is just going to be a personality section, and then we have a larger raw string, which is going to be an about me. Okay, so it's hard to visualize this when I'm just doodling on the screen, so let's clear this and let's actually bring up Discord to see what I mean. Okay, so let's type in our personality command, and as you can see right here, we've got a status message much like the one that we use for our details class. Okay, and so as you can see, we'll be able to break down the likes and dislikes into individual string values that we'll be able to join however we want. And in this case, I'm creating a bulleted list. The personality blurb is going to be a short section. And then, as I mentioned before, the about me is going to be shown as a separate embed entirely. So we're going to keep that as a string value as well. And what you don't see here is we're actually going to add a preview of the about me to the status message up here. Okay, this is a previous iteration of the bot, but I've determined that we want to show our user a little of their about me just so they know what's in there if they've entered a value at all. And if they want to view the entire thing, we'll give them a button so that they can spawn an additional message like that. Okay? But again, this is a previous iteration of the bot, so it doesn't have the preview of the about me. Anyway, enough of me talking. Let's jump into our code. Okay, let's jump into the profiles subdirectory of the classes folder, and we'll make a new Python file called personality. And before we do anything else, let's go into our init file for profiles, and we'll import everything from personality from .personality import star. And we can close that for now. And then within our personality module, let's go ahead and do our typical imports. So from future, import annotations. From Discord, import interaction. From typing, import type checking. And then since this is going to be a profile section, let's go ahead and just say right now from .section import profile section. And then down here, if we're type checking, since remember every profile section has a reference to the parent, so let's say from .profile import profile like that. And that should cover us to start. Oops. So let's drop in that. There we go. And let's define under all so we don't forget. And then all that's going to have in is profile personality, which is going to be the name of the class that we're about to create. Okay, so let's say class profile personality, and it's going to be a profile section like that. And let's define its slots. Oops. So there's only going to be 4 data points in this. We're going to have likes, and make sure we preface them all with underscores, dislikes, personality, and about me. Just like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and define our init function, our initializer. Def init, and we'll take a reference to the parent, which is a profile. We'll also take in our args and keyword args. So we need to call this superclass and pass in the parent as well as any args and keyword args that we might be passing it from higher up. And then let's get our base data. So self.likes is going to be a list of strings. And remember, we're always going to have a list here, no matter whether it's loading from the database or whether it's instantiating a new profile. This logic is always going to give us a list, so it doesn't need to be optional. So this is going to be equal to keyword_args.pop, and let's put in likes, undercase, or none, or empty list. So in the event that we don't find likes, keyword_args.pop is going to return none, and in the event that this returns none, we're just going to default to an empty list. Okay? So let's make sure we import list from typing. And then I'm just going to duplicate this line because it's extremely easy to say dislikes there and dislikes there. And it's the same data. Okay, so then we have self.personality, which is an optional string. And let's make sure we import optional as well. And that's going to equal keyword_args.pop personality, otherwise none. And we don't need to add an or condition there. And then we're also going to say self.aboutme, which is an optional string, because ultimately it's just a string value. We can construct the embed for that within the code, equals keyword_args.pop about me, otherwise none. Okay, awesome. Let's define some properties to expose these. Okay, so we're going to say @property. Down here I want to define likes without the underscore this time. And what this is going to return is a single string. And within this, because this is going to be called primarily in the compilation logic of the profile, I want to return that bulleted list that we need for the profile here, instead of just sets of instead of lists of strings that we add formatting to the compilation logic. We can do the formatting here within this getter. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is, if not self.likes, we need to return ns. If not self.likes. Okay, we need to import utilities. Let's import those here. From utilities, import star. So we need to return that sentinel value. Otherwise, I want to return, first of all, a hyphen with a space, and then we're going to add new line hyphen space dot join self.likes. Okay, so in the event that we have likes, we're going to create a bulleted list. And then let's define our setter @likes.setter def likes, and we're going to take in a value, and this value is going to be an optional list of strings. So this will give, since it's optional here, this is going to give the user an opportunity to delete their likes list if they don't want it displayed on their profile anymore, and this is not going to return anything. So if not value, let's say self.likes equals an empty list. Otherwise, self.likes else self.likes equals value. And regardless, we want to call self.update here, which we haven't defined yet, but we know we're going to have to define because of the profile section interface, contract. Okay, let's go ahead and define our, actually, the behavior here for dislikes is going to be extremely similar, so I'm going to copy this again, and we're going to say dislikes here, dislikes here, dislikes here. And I'm just going to paste all those in, just like that. Okay. Let's grab our personality now. So what are we going to do? For personality, let's just return the string. So at property def personality. And it's going to return us an optional string. And let's return self.personality or NS. And last but not least, app property dislikes. Why is this? Oh, here we go. One more that we didn't change. Okay. And let's define our setter for the property. So at personality.setter. And this is also going to take a value. That's an optional string. No return. And this we can just pass directly to the underlying data point. So we can say self.personality equals value, and of course self.update. Okay, last one. Let's copy this logic because it's more or less the same. And we're going to say self.aboutMe, about me right there. And then we're going to say at aboutMe dot setter. Hopefully you're way ahead of me. You know exactly what we've been doing. And then this is also going to take an optional string with no return. And we will do, weird colors. Oh, we didn't actually define the value. There we go. It's a little bit late for me, folks, but I appreciate you sticking with me. I really enjoy making these tutorials for you. So we're going to say self.aboutMe equals value because we can just directly pass that. Of course, self.update. Okay, cool. Okay, so what do we need to define next? Let's define our status function. So def status, remember it returns an embed, which we need to import from Discord. Okay, and let's define this. So this is just going to return make embed directly. In here, let's define our color, and that's going to be so. And you know, we're going to reference the color a lot throughout all of our classes that we make. So I want to say self.parent dot color. And this is going to be a property that we need to jump over here and make. Okay, so in the parent profile class, let's define a property. And this is going to be def color. So this is going to be an optional color class, which we need to import. Great. And let's just return self.details.color because the behavior is already such that we can pass that directly into an embed. Okay. So over here in profile, let's say the title equals an F string, and we'll say personality attributes for, and let's add some underscores to make it underlined in Discord. And I want to say self.details. No, you know what? Let's say self.parent.name.care name. And let's make a reference to that as well in the parent profile because we're going to be accessing that a lot as well. So let's say property equals def care name. And this is going to return us an optional string. And I want to say return self.details.care name. And let's indent that. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and jump back over to our personality script. And then here, let's finish up our status function. Okay. So for the description, we don't have any kind of body text that I want to display right here. So I'm actually just going to draw a separator. Okay, and then I'm going to say extra equals 40. That seems like a reasonable amount, so we're just going to draw a horizontal rule here to separate out the title from the rest of the embed. Okay, let's say that the timestamp equals false. We don't need a timestamp on this. And then for our fields, well, this is going to take a little bit of work because we aren't just going to define our behavior right here, because we're going to use the behavior that compiles the likes, dislikes fields, personality, things like that. We're going to use that behavior multiple times in the bot. So in addition to the status message, we'll also use the same exact behavior when we compile the profile. So I want to section that off so we don't have code duplication. Okay, makes sense? And before we define this function, let's actually go into utilities and make a new file. Okay, and I want to call this enums. And all we need to do here for our imports is say from enum lowercase, import enum uppercase. Okay, easy as that. So I want to drop down here and make an enum, and I want to call this section type. Okay, now we're going to expand on this particular enum later when we potentially add wizard functionality. So, you know, when you start up an application on your computer and you get a setup wizard, for instance, we're going to try and implement some functionality similar to that where people can set up their profile in a step-by-step walked through manner. Okay, but for now, I just want to say that this is of type enum, and we're going to say likes equals 1, dislikes equals 2. Okay, we're going to come back to this and add more sections, but for now I want to use it to differentiate between likes and dislikes. And let's add dunder all up here at the top so we can export everything. And section type, and I've dropped this down because we're going to have a lot of enums later on. So this list is going to fill up. Okay, so let's go into our init file and let's make sure that we say from.enums import star, and then we can close this and we can close our enums file as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and define this. Okay, so let's say def likes field, and this is also going to take an additional argument of section, and this will be of type section type. And what this is going to return to us is an embed field. Okay, make sure you import embed field at the top. I have it imported from some testing earlier, but you'll need to import that. So what's the logic that we want to do to compile our likes and dislikes sections? Well, let's go ahead and start by saying if section is section type dot likes, what do we want to do? So the first thing we need to do is change the name of the section, right? So the actual title of the field. So let's say section name equals fstring, and you'll see why we do an fstring in a second, and then I'm just going to say likes with an underscore. And let's jump over here to Discord for a second because I want to preview our profile, and I want you to note that in our section names, so for instance, likes, dislikes, personality, we have emojis for color, okay? So I want to make sure that we add those emojis in when we create the section names in our code. So we can close this. Now let's go back here, and I want to define a new emoji. Okay, so this is where your resource server can come in handy. Okay, so I want to go back in here to Discord, and then within our bot resources server here, if I pull up our emoji picker, you can see I've already got a number of emojis saved in bot resources. Alrighty, and the one that I'm looking for is this check mark right here. And I want to get the raw mention, and as you can see, I've been doing that for some other things. But let's go ahead and put a / in front of that emoji, and we can get the raw mention for it. And I encourage you to use, honestly, any emoji you want. If you're just doing this for demonstration, just to follow along, you can use a default emoji. Remember, the emoji picker, you can pull up by saying Windows key M, And then you can easily use a default emoji and put a slash in front of that. And you can copy the Unicode version from here, or you can just use the emoji picker directly in your code. But for me, I'm going to use this check mark for our likes. So I'm going to say check equals partial emoji dot from string, and we're going to pass in that custom emoji string there. I also want to define an additional one called cross. We're going to use both of these a lot, particularly in our progress dialog, to show the user what they've completed and what they still need to complete. So let's say partial emoji dot from string, and then in here I want to pull up our emoji picker, and I'm going to put cross, and we're going to use this red cross just like that. Okay, so that's all we need from our bot emojis. We neglected to define under all, so let's do that really fast. It's always good practice in every module that we create. Okay, and we can close that. Now here in our section name for likes, I want to add, well, we're going to need to import our utilities first. Import utilities, enums. Oh, I'm sorry. That's from assets. There we go. So let's say from assets import star. So now we can say down here bot emojis dot check. Okay? Just like that. And that's going to insert a check mark into the title of the field. So let's set the field name if else. So if it's not section type dot likes, we know the only other section type we have right now is dislikes. So let's plan for that. So section name equals an F string, and here let's say bot emojis dot cross. And then we'll say double underscore dislikes double underscore. Okay, what are the other values that we want to set? Well, we need to set the value of the field, right? So let's say field value equals self.likes, because remember, in the likes getter, we already did the formatting logic here. So we want to get this if it's there. So down here, self.likes, if self.likes is not ns, else, and then we need to say string self.likes, because if we're returning ns, we want the string value of that, which is our dummy placeholder that says not set. Okay, but we can't just pass not set into the field. We've done that before and caused an error. So we just need to call the string function on it to start. Okay, and if we actually come back in here to Discord and we reference our profile, so let's reference this one more time, and I'll leave it up this time. You'll notice under each of our sections, we've got this separator. Okay, and then under likes is no different. But there's no separator under dislikes. Okay, so we only need to add this to the likes field just for continuity. So under here, I want to say field value plus equals, and we're going to say an F string with a new line to start, and then draw separator. And I just want to say extra equals 15. We don't need it to be very long, but it's just going to separate each section out. Okay, and then down here for our dislikes, I want to say field value equals the same logic that we used except with our dislikes. So self.dislikes, if self.dislikes is not ns, else string self.dislikes. Okay, cool. So let's construct our field, and we can just return it directly. And the name of the field is going to be section name. The value of the field is section value, or field value, excuse me. And then it will be inline. Okay, so no matter whether we have it in our status message or in our profile, it's going to display as a column. They're going to display as columns next to one another. Okay, so that logic is finished. Let's, up here in our status function, call this logic to create two fields for our likes and dislikes. So here we can just say self.likes field And then for the section type, we can just directly say section type dot likes. Okay, and I want to duplicate this, and I want to say dislikes here. And we'll keep it as likes field because remember that handles the behavior for both sections. Okay, so let's also, since our personality section is going to be an embed field as well, let's define the behavior that compiles that. This logic is going to be a little bit more straightforward, and we're going to say def personality field, and it's going to take self and only return us an embed field, so there's no additional parameters. And then I just want to say the value equals self.personality if self.personality is not ns, else string ns. I'm sorry, else string self.personality, just for continuity's sake. Okay, and then let's return an embed field. And we'll just pass the name in directly. So we'll pass the section name in directly. And for this, I want to grab another emoji. So I want to grab the question goose. Nope, not the happy check, the question goose. And then let's drop that into our bot emojis. Let's just call it goose. From string, drop the string in. And then down here for the name, I want to create an F string. And we're going to start out with bot emojis dot goose. And then double underscore personality, double underscore. And let's put another emoji on the other side. Bot emojis dot goose. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add our value. So we're gonna say an F string, and you'll see why in a second. And then we want to put value as the first parameter, or the first part of the F string, excuse me. Let's put a new line, and then let's add the draw separator function in here directly. And then that's going to take an extra of 15. Okay, and then of course we don't want this inline, so let's set that to false. Okay, cool. We're in business. So let's go ahead and add that to our status message. So self.personality field. And then let's do the about. Let's talk about the about me. Because what we want to do is we want to include a preview of the about me in our status message, but in the event that about me is too long, we also want the user to be able to pull up the additional embed that will appear alongside their profile, because ultimately both of these are going to be in separate embeds, the same message, but for spacing reasons, we're making them separate. So I want to go ahead and define the compilation behavior for about me, and then we're also going to define a preview behavior. So let's say def compile about me, and then this is going to return us an optional embed. So in the event that we don't have an about me section, it's not going to return anything. Okay? So if not self.aboutme, let's just return nothing. Okay? Otherwise, let's return make embed directly. And we're going to say color equals self.parent.color, the property that we set earlier. Title is going to be equal to an F string, and it's going to be about self.parent.carename. Carename. Not time. This is title. There we go. All right. The description is just going to be self.aboutme, because if we're here, we know for a fact that there is data within this. And let's say timestamp equals false. And for some flavor, let's add in here some footer text. Okay, and I want to say that we're going to add in self.parent.details.url if self.parent.details.url is not ns. Else embed.empty. Okay, so what on earth are we defining here? So as kind of a stylistic thing to add some color and depth to the profile, we're also going to include the user's custom URL on their About Me if they've got it. Otherwise, we're just going to give it a blank Sentinel value. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's also define the preview behavior, and we'll do it above the compile. And let's say def preview About Me, and no arguments, and it's going to return an embed field. And we always want to return an embed field here, even if there's no data, because the field could potentially just say not set. Okay, so if self.aboutMe is NS, then we want to set the value of our field equal to the string value of self.aboutMe. Okay, but let's talk about if the length. So let's say they have inputted something, but if the length of self.aboutMe is less than 1,000 characters, and if it's under 1,000, we can just say the value equals self.aboutMe, so it can just go directly in there. But what happens if the value is over 1,000 characters, 1,000 or more? So let's say that the preview value equals self.aboutMe, and we're going to take a slice and say 0 through 1001. Because remember, it's not inclusive, so this is going to take it up through the 1,000th character. But I also want to add a string here. And it's going to be an ellipsis and a new line. And we're going to add some asterisks, so it's italicized. And let's say preview only. Click below to see the whole thing. Preview. Okay, so again, we're giving our user explicit instructions on how to operate the bot in case they don't quite get it. All right, so down here, let's return our embed field as we've done before. And for the name, let's go ahead and define a new emoji. And we're going to call this scroll equals partial emoji dot from string. And I'll pull up our emoji picker and type in scroll. Okay. So down here, we can see the name of the field is equal to an F string. And the first thing we want is bot emojis dot scroll. And then this is going to say about me / biography. And then we also want to put bot emojis dot scroll one more time to finish that off. Okay, let's add the value. And the value is going to be much like what we did in the personality field. So we're going to have an F string that starts with the value and a new line, and then we're going to draw a separator of 15 characters. And finally, we don't want this inline, so let's set that to false. And let's call the preview behavior up here in our status function. So we'll say preview self.preview about me. Okay, cool. Where do we want to go from here? So there's a couple of things that we want to do kind of together. We can start by defining the set function here in our profile personality. So down here at the bottom, oops, oh no. Down here at the bottom, let's say def set, and this should be async def, excuse me. And then for this, we're just going to do the same behavior as the other modules, but pass in the profile personality specific at constructs. So status equals self.status. We're going to say view equals a profile personality view, which we'll make in a minute. But this is going to take in the interaction.user and the profile personality class itself. And then same behavior as before, await interaction.response.send message. And we'll say embed equals the status, view equals view. Then we need to await view.wait. And that's done. Okay. Now let's jump into our UI folder. And then we can make a new Python file called personality here as well. So let's do some imports really quickly. From future, import annotations. From Discord, we'll need interaction as usual. Oh goodness. From Discord, import interaction. From typing, import type checking. And then if we're type checking, we're going to need a reference to that profile personality class, the parent class of this view. But remember, we're calling this view from within the profile personality class, so this is why we need to put that in type checking. So from classes.profiles.personality, import profile personality, like that. Oh, excuse me, from classes.profiles, because we have, remember, we've made this a package, so we can just import it directly from the profiles package. Okay. So let's define the view that we're going to attach to the message. Okay, so we'll call it class personality view. Oh, I know I said profile personality view over here. Let's change that to just personality view. Excuse me. Okay, and then this is going to be a frog view, which we need to import. So at the top, let's say from utilities, import star. Import star. And also, you know, since that's not the namespace that we have our frog view in, let's also say from dot view import star. Okay. So let's define our init. And this is going to take in the owner as usual, which could be a union of member or user. And of course we need to import these things at the top. So we'll need union, member, and user from Discord. And then first thing we need to do is call the superclass and pass in the owner. Oh, excuse me, we didn't finish up here. So in addition to the owner in our constructor, we also want to take the profile object that we're dealing with, which in this case is a profile personality. And then we'll also take args and keyword args. Okay, let me drop this down because we need a little bit more room here. Oops. Great. And then we'll also pass those args and keyword args into the constructor, the superclass constructor, in case we decide to pass anything later. Okay, so let's assign the personality object to the view. So this is a profile personality, and it's going to equal the profile object that we passed in. Okay, so let's construct the logic to put our buttons on. So the button list is going to equal an empty list for now because we'll populate it with buttons, and then we'll say for button in button list self.addItem button. Okay, just like that. And then we can add buttons to the list as we construct them. So let's create our Dunder all now that we have something to put in it. And we'll say personality view. And then into this view, we're going to need to add some buttons. Okay, so I want to make a subclass of button as we did before. And we're going to say personality section button. Okay, and it's going to be a profile section button, which we haven't imported yet. So let's say from .common import star, and now we can say profile section button like that. And let's define our init. So here I want to take a reference to the personality object. So let's say P is a profile personality, just so we don't have to type the word personality. And then we're going to take a reference to the operation that we're performing, which is going to be a section type. Okay, so we're actually going to use this button for all 4 of our personality sections because the behavior is so similar. And before we go any further, let's define the additional sections in our enum module. So let's say personality equals 3 and about me equals 4. Okay? And before we close out of our enums module, I'd like to actually subclass the enum because there's some behavior that we're going to want later on. And it's going to be easiest to subclass now instead of doing it later and then having to implement that behavior in retrospect. So what I'm going to call this is, I bet you guessed it, a frog enum, and it's going to be an enum. And then I want to give it a property. Okay, and this is going to be proper name. It's going to return us a string. Okay, so let's raise a not implemented error here. And we're going to add an additional method to this later on, but for the time being, we only need proper name. So let's convert this to a frog enum, and let's implement the proper name property. So we're going to say at property, def proper name. There it is right there. Okay, so within proper name, I want to define I want to return the string value that we want to use for the section's name. Okay, so this is going to make sense when I type it out. So if self.value, so if the value equals 4, we're going to return the string about me with a space. Otherwise, let's just return self.name. So we can just return either likes, dislikes, or personality because those are fine as is for a name. Okay, and this behavior might seem a little strange to you since we only have 4 sections here, but when we go to races and classes, for instance, those are going to get a little more complicated since we have multiple situations where we're going to use 2 or more words concatenated together. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go back to our personality UI and finish defining the button. So we're going to drop down and make our superclass call, so super.init. And then into this, I want to pass the button label. And for this, we're going to use the property that we just created. Okay, so we have a section type being passed in here, right? So I just want to make the label of the button operation.properName. And that's going to substitute in the name of whichever section we have created a button for. Awesome. So disabled is going to be false, and then the row is going to be 0 for now. Okay, we don't need to drop this down. There's only going to be 4 buttons. Oops. And let's make sure we call self.setStyle. And then how are we going to do this? Because we only have a reference to the profile personality object and what operation it is. We don't actually have a reference to the underlying data point, do we? Well, we can write a function that does that for us, and it returns the underlying data point based on what operation we pass in. So let's go back over here to profile personality, and let's see. Let's put it under the set method for now. And this is just going to be some basic if-else logic. We're going to call this return section, and it's going to take the self and a section, which is a section type. Okay, and what's this going to return? Well, we want to return the underlying data point because this is ultimately going to get passed in to the setStyle function, and we always want to use the underlying data point for setStyle. So for this, we're actually going to return an optional union list of strings or just a string. Okay, so let's import union at the top. Excellent. Okay, so hopefully it makes sense what the typing is here. So let's do our logic. So if section is section type dot likes, let's return self dot likes, self dot underscore likes. Okay, and we can actually copy this logic and do the same for dislikes. dislikes. And then we can just return self.dislikes. elif section is section type.personality. Let's return self.personality. And of course, else, let's return self.aboutme. Since we're only going to be passing in the section internally, we can control what's going into this function. So we don't necessarily need to say else if section type is about me. We know that the only other alternative right here is going to be about me for the time being. Okay, so this is all we need for the return section function. Let's head back over to our personality UI and let's call that section function, return section function, excuse me, right here in the set style call. So we're going to say p.return section, and we'll pass in the operation there. Okay? And then let's say self.operation. We need to cache a reference to that. Equals, which is a section type. Let's make sure we type it. Is going to equal operation. So we're going to access this operation within the callback. So we need to cache that reference. Otherwise, it's gone forever. So next up, we can define our callback, which is an async function. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is make a shortened reference to the personality. Okay, so in the profile, in the view, we have this personality. So let's say person equals self.view.personality. Okay, so let's look at the behavior that we implemented in the details. Okay, so on any given button, we make a shortened reference, and then we use a set function. So this is details.setJobs. We've got set rates here, and so on and so forth. But how are we going to do that when we only have one button for all of our operations? Well, let's make another function within our profile personality class that, depending upon what our operation is, will send the appropriate modal to the user. Cool. So let's go back in profile personality, and down here, we're going to write a new function called async def set personality section. Okay, it'll take the self and interaction, and we also want to take the section that we're setting, which is a section type, and there won't be any return. Okay, so we need to define our modal, because for the personality section, since we're just getting string inputs, we just need modals. Okay, so let's go back over into our UI script, not script module, excuse me. And what I want to do here is I want to say class personality modal. And this is going to be a frog modal. Okay? And so now within this modal is where we're going to decide what is displayed based upon the profile section we're dealing with. So let's define our init. And into the init, I want to take the section we're working on, which is a section type, and then our current value, current val, let's say that. And this is an optional union of a list of strings or just a string. Okay, so let's import optional and list from typing and define our behavior in the personality modal. So we want to call the superclass first, and we'll give it a title. So let's be smart about this. We have a reference to the section we're working on. So let's just call this an F string that says edit your section.propername. So it'll say edit your likes or edit your about me. Easy enough, right? We're being super generic so we can use this proper name and insert the correct section without having to be too specific. So let's also cache a reference to the section that we're working on. So self.operation is going to equal the section we're working on. Actually, let's call this self.section for continuity's sake. And then down here, I want to make an if-else block that defines what's going to appear in the modal. So if our section is section type.personality, or section is section type.aboutme, then I want to set one group of instructions. Instructions. And in addition, I also want to define the max length of the field. Okay, so we're going to have two parameters that we set based on what section we're working on. And then else, if we're working on likes or dislikes, we're going to have a different set of instructions and a different max length. Okay, so what are the instructions we want to put for our personality and about me? I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here so I don't have to spend time typing it. And we're going to say enter your desired section.propername, section content here. Note that this accepts Markdown, new lines, and emojis, so make it your own. Okay, so we're encouraging the user to actually add some flair to their profile themselves. But what do we want to do for the max length? Because these two sections could be radically different lengthwise. I mean, the About Me is going to get its own embed, right? So let's say 400 characters if our section is section type.personality. Else, we're going to say 4,000 characters. Okay, so that's the max amount of characters that we can put into a modal. And since the max amount of characters that goes into it that can be used in an embed is 6,000, we're always going to be safe here. Okay, so what instructions do we want to use for likes and dislikes? Well, again, let me paste this in and you can pause the video to copy it down. And it's going to be enter a list of your section.propername separated by commas. Minimum 3 is suggested, and your likes list should be longer than your dislikes to avoid formatting issues. The situation that we have here is if I pull up Discord, you can see that these are two separate sections. Likes and dislikes are two separate sections. And we can potentially, actually I don't think I can do it on my old bot, but we could potentially make our dislike section longer. In which case, the formatting would be janky. This list would still be this length, but the separator would be way up here, and personality would be jacked down. It would be a hot mess. So we want to at least attempt to avoid that by letting the user know how to avoid it. And then what do we want our max length to be? I feel like 250 characters is plenty for a like and dislike list, including commas. If they have any problems with that, well, that's a lot of characters. And then in addition, since we're passing the current value directly into the modal as the value that is pre-populated, we want to process our likes or dislikes because they're a list and we can't read that in the modal. So I want to reassign current value to comma space dot join current value. If current value is not none, else none. Okay? Cool. So let's add our instructions and our text input. So we're going to say self.addItem, and this will be an input text, which we need to import from Discord UI. So from Discord.UI namespace, let's import an input text. And then for the input text, the style that we're going to use is input text style.multiline. And we need to import input text style from the Discord namespace because it's an enum and it doesn't live in the Discord UI namespace. That confused me a little bit initially. And for the label, we're going to just name it instructions, as we usually do. And what do we want to put for our placeholder? Well, let's put something generic that again summarizes what we put up here in our instructions. So I'm going to put an F string and I'll say enter your section.propername section content. And as you can see, this proper name property that we made in our custom enum is coming in pretty handy. So we're going to use that a lot more. So the value for this is going to be our instructions that we defined up above. And then we're going to make sure that this is not required. Doesn't matter what they put in the box. Let's add another input text. And this one is going to also be input text style.multiline. multi-line. And our label is literally going to be section.properName. Easy. And for placeholder, we can't necessarily put a placeholder that's either a set of likes or our personality. So I'm just going to say, for example, a beautiful froggy princess who loves flies. So we're going to give more of a description for the personality and the about me than we would for the likes. Hopefully, where we say enter a list of your likes separated by commas, that should be enough information for the user to figure out what they need to do here. Okay, so let's make our value equal to the current value that we passed in. So either way, we're either going to have none or a string, or if it's a list of strings, we've concatenated that into a list here, or excuse me, a single string here. So we can just pass in the current value. And let's make required equal to false. And we'll also set the max length equal to max len. Okay, so that's our setup. Let's drop down here and we'll call async def callback. And let's go ahead and set the value. So I want to immediately set self.value equal to self.children sub1.value. Okay, so one way or the other, we're going to be getting something into our self.value. Or none. Because remember, if they submit a blank box, we don't want to store an empty string. We want to store a none value. All right, so if self.operation, so we're going to, we did not cache a reference, excuse me, the section. If self.section is section type.likes, or self.section is section type.dislikes, if we have a value, so if we haven't put none in our self.value, if they didn't delete the value in the box, we're going to say self.value equals, and we're going to do some list comprehension here. But first, what I want to do is I want to define a new utility function. And you're going to see the purpose of this utility function in a second. But up here at the top, let's import regex. So import re. I know, regex, it's scary stuff. Scary stuff, but this is going to be pretty straightforward. And I want to say here def titleize. Probably not correct grammar, but we're going with it anyway. And this is going to take a text, which is a string, and this is going to return a string to us. Okay, so the purpose of this function is to kind of circumvent some weird behaviors for the title behavior, for the string.title method, excuse me. So if we were to make a string, string equals froggy queen, and we were to say new string equals string.title, this, if we printed out the value of new string, it would be, well, let's make this incorrect first. So curse my good grammar. Okay, so if we put froggy queen all lowercase and we say string.title, it's going to give us froggy queen with the two words, the first letter is uppercase. But let's say we've got an odd name and maybe it has an asterisk. Sorry, not an asterisk, an apostrophe in it. Can you tell it's getting a little late? So let's say we have grahatia, like this. So if we were to print out the value of this after using the title method, we would get the R would be capitalized as well. And that's not the behavior we want. That's not how this name should be displayed. So what we're going to do in the titleize function here is we're going to kind of redefine that behavior. And we're going to make it so that nothing after an apostrophe is titled, is uppercased. So I just want to return re.substitute. And then let's go ahead and put in a regex string here. So preface your string with R. And then in brackets, let's say A through Z, capital, and then lowercase a through Z, end bracket, plus open parenthesis, let's put an apostrophe, and then in brackets again, we'll say A through Z capital and A through Z lower, end bracket, plus end parenthesis, question mark. I really don't want to have to explain what's going on in here. Okay, so after we define the regex string, let's say lambda word colon word dot group 0 in parentheses dot capitalize, and then under that we're going to put the text. Okay, I'm terrible at explaining how regex works, so just make sure we copy this down exactly as is, because we will never be coming back here to change it. I have never changed this in 2 years, and it works great. So let's just keep it like that. Let's make sure we export it in Dunder All as well, and then we can close our utilities. Okay, so back here in our personality UI, we can do some list comprehension now that we have that function. So I want to say titleize i.strip for I in self.values self.value.split at the comma. Okay, so let's walk through what we're having happen here. So we're stepping through each value in the list that's returned from self.value.split. And this is going to be the case. We're going to have something to split here if it's a likes or dislikes section, because they should have entered a list of their likes or dislikes separated by commas. So in theory, this should work. So we're stepping through each value in self.value.split, which is a list, and we're saying strip off any extra spaces. So a lot of times people are going to put a space after a comma. We don't need that. And then we can go ahead and titleize the stripped value. And we're going to put all of those into a list and store that back in self.value. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so down here I want to say self.complete equals true, because remember we have a complete flag in our frog modal that's going to alert the text outside the modal that things have been submitted and that we should continue processing. Okay, and then I want to say await interaction.response.edit message with nothing in here, because we just need to put a dummy response. And then self.stop. We need to close the modal. Okay, let's make sure we put that here as well. So personality modal in Dunder All. And then let's jump back into our profile personality section class, and we can define the set personality section function. Okay, so let's define our modal, and this is going to equal a personality modal, which we haven't imported yet. So let's go back up to the top, and we're going to say from UI, let's do it here, from UI, and we're going to import star, and then all the way back at the bottom, I'm going to say personality. No, we need to define this in our init, of course. So the init for our UI package, we need to say under details from .personality import star. Okay, now we can access it properly from this script. There it is. Okay, so our modal is going to be a personality modal, and we need to pass in the section that we're working with, and we also need to pass in our current value, which again, we've written a function for. It's right here. So let's just pass in self.return section and the section we're working with. Okay, cool. Awesome, awesome. So let's go ahead and respond to the interaction response.send modal, and we're going to send the modal that we created, and then we want to await modal.wait. So we need to wait for a response. Now I want to check if not modal.complete. We can just return, so we don't need to keep processing the code. Otherwise, well, in details, we could just directly set the underlying attribute through the property, because it was a one function per property situation. But since we're doing a function that handles all of our attributes, we need to define another function in order to set them properly as well. So actually, let's define that here under our get attribute, our get section, excuse me, and we're going to define this as set section. Okay? And the behavior within this is going to be the same as return section, but in reverse. Okay? So for set section, we need to take the section we're working on, which is a section type, and then we need to take the value that we're inputting. Okay, so this could be an optional union of, you guessed it, a list of strings or a string. And of course, it doesn't return us anything because it's a setting function. And we just want to say if section is section type.likes. We want to say self.likes and make sure we use the property so that the update logic is called. We can say it equals the value directly. Elif section is section type.dislikes, self.dislikes equals value. I think you see where we're going with this. Elif section is section type.personality, self.personality equals the value, and else self.aboutme equals value. Great. And so now, if we go back down here to our set personality section function, we can say down here, set section, self.setSection, and into this we're going to pass the section we're working on and modal.value, like that. And then we're done with that. So this is how we create a function that's going to be multi-purpose for all of our data points in the personality class and not just a single one. Okay, so only a few more things we need to do for the profile personality class. Let's add it to the database. Okay, so let's go into our database module and we will define, we're not going to copy that. We're going to define a new table in our assert database structure. Okay, so in here we're going to write a query and it's going to be create table if not exists personality, and then open parentheses. And what data points do we want to put in this table? Well, to start, we're going to need the profile ID so we know whose data is in a particular record. And remember, that's going to be text, and it needs to be unique and not null. And it'll be our primary key as well. Okay, so comma, and then we're going to say likes is going to be text, because remember, we can store lists of strings as text. Okay, comma, we're going to say dislikes, which is also going to be text, personality, which is going to be text, and about me, which is, surprisingly enough, going to be text. And then, like I said, we need to add a comma, and then down here we want to say constraint, personality underscore p key, primary key, and then we'll set profile ID in parentheses and close both sets of parentheses like that. And let's also add our personality aspects to the view where we pull all of our information. So here, after post URL, let's say, what do I want to say? Let's say PR. We'll make the shortened code for personality PR, and we'll say .likes, PR.dislikes, PR.personality, and PR.aboutme, and make sure we have a space after that. Otherwise, the from clause won't be messed up. And then let's drop down here, and without a comma, after this line specifying our join clause, let's write another join clause. Let's join this to personality, personality PR on p.profile ID equals pr.profile ID. Okay? So now we've incorporated the data from our personality table into our master view, where we extract everything from. Cool. Awesome. Great, we can close our database module for now. And the last thing we need to do before we integrate this into our profiles cog is to define some load and save logic. So the update logic I think is going to be easiest. So let's override our update method. And here we're going to say C equals database connection.cursor. And we can go ahead and just write our query. So C.execute. And then here I want to say update personality. Set likes equal to %s. Dislikes equal to %s. Dislikes equal to %s. Personality equal to %s. About me equal to %s, where profile ID equals %s. And then put a comma after the query itself and some parentheses, and we're going to say self.likes. Self.likes, make sure we're doing the underlying data point. Self.dislikes, self.personality. My formatting's a little messed up, excuse me. .personality. Self.aboutme. And then the last variable that's going to format in is self.parent.id. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and do database connection.commit, and we'll close our cursor, c.close, to tidy up. Okay, there's our update method. Super simple. Let's go up here to right underneath our init method, and let's define the load behavior. So remember, load is going to be a class method. And we're going to say def load. And let's make sure we import any and type from typing. And let's also import type var as well, because we're going to make one of those now. Under dunder all, let's say pp for profile personality equals typevar. And that's going to be pp in quotes for the first parameter, and then bound profile personality in quotes, like that. And let's substitute in the type for the generic type. So instead of type T, it'll be type pp, and that's also what this is going to return. But let's also be a little more specific with our typing. So we're actually going to be getting in a list of optional strings here, okay, because this is what's coming directly from the database, and even though we have lists of strings for likes and dislikes, those are stored as a single string in the database. Okay, so the logic in this one is going to be pretty straightforward. Let's just directly return the class and drop in the proper data where it goes. So the parent is going to be equal to the parent that we've passed in. Likes, we need to convert that database list, and then this is going to be data sub 0. So it's the first piece of data that we've passed in. Let's copy that, and let's say dislikes is data sub 1. So we're converting that. And then we can just directly say personality equals data sub 2, and about me equals data sub 3. So this one was an extremely easy parse. Okay, so let's go into our profile class, our profile master class, and add profile personality into the mix, okay? So first thing I want to do is import profile personality in addition from our classes.profiles package. And then we're going to make a parameter for it in our init. So personality is a profile personality. And we're also going to make an attribute for it. Okay, now what happens when we create a new profile? Well, the behavior is going to be the same that we've defined for profile details. So we want to say self.personality equals profile personality, and then we'll just pass in the self. Okay, and then for our load behavior, this is good. We're going to need to figure out what data we're putting into the details now from our database, but the call is going to be more or less the same. So self.personality equals profile personality.load, and we want to pass the profile itself and then some data, which we're going to look at in a second. Okay, so let's take a look at our database manager here. And if we look at, oops, that's the wrong database, my mistake, folks, I apologize. If we look at our profile master view, Let's take a look at well, it hasn't been updated since we haven't run our bot yet, but we can still figure out which data points are going into details. Okay, so remember data points, let's see, let me get my pen. So data points 0, 1, and 2 are the internal data. So we don't need those. Those are already taken care of. So this is data point 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this is going to be data points index 3 through index 9 for the slice, because remember, it's non-inclusive. So instead of 3 to the end, let's say 3 to 9. And then for our profile personality, let's say 9 to the end. Okay, so that should be passing in the correct values there. Finally, let's go over to our profiles cog, and we'll create a function, a slash command that will show our status message for the personality. So let's say at profiles, at profiles dot command, and then in here I want to say name is personality, name equals personality, and then description equals, we can just say view and update your likes, dislikes, personality, and about me sections. Okay, so let's say async def profile personality, and this is going to take a CTX automatically and have no return. And we're going to copy these two lines right here. So this process of getting the guild data and getting the profile is going to happen every time, so we can just paste those right in. And the only thing that we're going to need to call differently is the set method of the personality class instead of the set method for profile details here. So we could even copy that down and just change this to personality. Okay, and now our personality function is done. Great. Now, I'd love to say, let's go test it in Discord, but realistically, what we're saying is, let's debug for a little while before it even functions properly in Discord. So here we go. Let's run our bot. Let's see what the first problem is. I'm sure we're going to encounter at least one. All right. So it looks like I've misspelled the word text. So let's fix that. Okay. And let's run again. Okay, looks like I've forgotten a space down here, so we want to make sure we have a space after our join clause, otherwise it'll smoosh together as you see here. So let's run again. Hey, we're online. So let's check our database manager really fast. And I want to refresh our view, which now, if you see, if I click off of it and back on, you can see it's got the PR, the profile table, incorporated into it. And if I go up here to our tables and refresh, now we have a personality table with all of the data points that we requested. That's awesome. Okay, good. It's working. So now we can jump over to Discord, into our testing server, and let's run our personality command. Okay, so it didn't pop up for the first time. That's okay. We kind of figured that would happen. Let's see here. Where's my console? Nope, that's not the right one. Where's my console? Oh, there we go. Okay. So it looks like the profile already exists. Okay. So I know what's happening here, actually. So if we open up our database admin software and we view our profile master view, so let's view all the rows, and you'll see here that we have no records. But why don't we have any records? If I go up here to our profiles table and I view the data in this table, we're going to have a record that I created, right? So why is our profile master view not concatenating the data? Well, since we made the personality table after originally making this profile record, there was no record made in the personality table for me. So I made this record when there was only details. So because of that, there's no record in the personality table. So if we go to the SQL of our master view, what we're doing here is we're matching the profile ID in the profiles table with the profile ID in the personality table. And again, since there's no record in the personality table, this logic didn't get run because ultimately this join clause wasn't able to be processed. Okay, so how do we fix that? Well, I'm just going to right click anywhere and I'm going to use my query tool and I'm going to say delete from profiles, semicolon, delete from details. And that's going to delete all of our records. Okay, so let's go ahead and try running again. Okay, and let's go ahead and open Discord. And we're going to say profile personality. All right. All right, so we're in business. We've got some janky behavior, which I'm not super thrilled about. However, we have our status message. Okay, cool. And we have no errors. So let's address the issue that we have here. I made an oops in the code. So if we go back, if we can stop our bot for now and we go into the profile personality class, what we did here in our status message was when we called the fields functions, so the likes field, the personality field, we put in this enum value, right? But we didn't put in dot value, and we need to put dot value to access what's on the right-hand side of the enum, which is our emojis. So if we want to access this partial emoji, we need to say bot emojis dot arrow left dot value. Okay? So let's make sure that we do that for all of the emojis that we're calling here in our status message. So we need it for the personality field and the about me preview. Okay. So let's run again and make sure that the formatting is all fixed up there. All right, looks like we have an issue. Aha. So we did make an oops. We did make an oops. We forgot a step. Okay, let's go into our database, and right here we haven't even created the logic to insert a record into our personality table. So let's just copy this, and I want to say insert into personality. Okay, just like that. And let's go ahead and clear out our database again, just to make sure that we don't have any records in there. And let's run our bot one more time. This should be more successful. Again, this is all part of the debugging process, folks, and I could easily pause the video and take stock of all the issues, but I think it's best to run through things and just kind of see what the thought process is. So let's run our personality again. And this looks a lot better. This is looking much better. So we've got our long separator up here for the description field, and then our actual fields all have smaller separators in between to kind of to visually differentiate between the items. Cool. But we have an issue here. Where's our view? Why don't we have any buttons in our view? Well, let's go back into the code, and I can tell you right now that that's because here in our UI class, we never added any buttons to the button list. Okay, luckily we only have one button that we need to submit here, right? So let's go ahead and say right here, profile personality button, there it is, personality section button. I can't even remember what I've named these things. Thanks for hanging with me, folks. And then to the personality section button, we want to pass a profile personality. So let's just say self.personality. And then the operation we'll just pass directly. So this is going to be section type.likes. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate this because ultimately all we're going to do is change which section we're tying the button to. Okay, because we need the personality reference in each one, but we need to change the section type of each button. Okay, let's try running one more time. I'm feeling confident about this one. I'm feeling good. Okay. And there we go. Okay, excellent. We're in business. And you can see right here that our character name is marked as not set. because we built a brand new profile, right? I deleted all the records before. So this is actually functioning correctly as well. So let's change our likes. Let's see what happens when we click this. Okay, it looks like we have an error. So let's go back over here and see what's going on. Interesting. Okay, so there's no errors in the code. So let's walk through the logic and see what's going on here. So in our personality section button, we never finished the callback. Okay, so let's talk about the callback here. Now that we're done with the set profile personality section function, here within our profile personality class, this one here, we can call this based on the section that our button corresponds to. So here, the rest of the callback is going to read await person.setPersonality attribute, section. And then we're going to pass in the interaction, and we're going to pass in self.operation, okay? And then I want to call self.setStyle again, and we're going to do the exact same thing here. We're just going to copy this, and instead of P, we're going to say person, and then this needs to be self.operation, okay? Because we're accessing the cached the cached value there. Okay, and then finally, let's say await edit message helper. The interaction is the interaction. Embed equals person.status, and the view is self.view. Okay, I'm feeling good about this now. I know I said that the last 12 times that we've done this, but we're feeling really, really good now. I think this is going to work. So let's go over here and we'll run our command and click the button. And lo and behold, we have a modal. Excellent. Okay, so let's put in our likes. What do we like? Well, let's say water, jumping, and I'm actually gonna make this weird case so we can test our titleize function as well. And how about more frogs? Okay, so we've got 3 items that should appear. It's going to process those and hopefully update. All right, it did not, so I bet we have an error. Unsupported format character. Oh no, we've made an oops here. Let's see. I would bet money that this is, well, it says right here, it's within the update call of our personality class. So let's see here. Let's get rid of these print statements that I was definitely not using for debugging earlier. And we will, it looks like it's right here. So under dislikes, I made a mistake and didn't put %s. I just put %. Okay, so that should fix that. So let's rerun. Come on now. Come on, Pookie. There we go. Database connection initialized. All right, very cool. Personality. Let's set our likes. Water, jumping, and other beautiful frogs. And of course, we're doing weird capitalization to check the titleize function. Hey, there we go. Okay, so our likes list populated with bullet points, and our titleize function works because the first letter of each word is capitalized. Cool. Let's check our dislikes. Same thing. And what do we dislike? As a frog, we dislike heat, let's say vegans, and the brown note. Okay, no one likes those things, right? I assume. Okay, and that imported as well. So let's look at the issue we have if we add more dislikes than likes. Okay, so like number 4, and let's say like number 5. Okay, so the issue we have here is now that this separator, because it's attached to the likes field and not the dislikes field, we have this mismatch here. And I think I'm going to come back to this when we refactor in a couple of videos, but for the time being, we're just going to have to rely on the user not to put in more dislikes than likes. I think I have an idea how to fix this, but it's going to need some tinkering, so I'll come back to it. Okay, so let's get rid of those additional dislikes. Okay, and let's check our personality. We don't need anything fancy here, so let's just say ribbit, ribbit, motherfuckers. Okay, and that's set as well. Everything's updated. And now let's check our About Me. So for the About Me, I'm just going to copy in an About Me I already had prepared just for looks. And let's see if this inserts. Okay, very good. So since my About Me section was short, it gave me it put the entire thing here as the preview. But let's try a long About Me biography. Let's do something that's all 4,000 characters. And thanks to the magic of pausing the video and Wikipedia, let's go ahead and paste in the Wikipedia entry on frogs. Okay, so it's not quite 4,000 characters. It looks like it's about 3,200, but that'll give us a chance to test our preview behavior as well. Okay, so it looks like we have an error in that regard. Let's go back to Frogbot. And the edit message helper failed. Aha, this was a mistake on my part. I can already tell you what the issue is. So in our preview About Me function. Okay, let me actually pull the Discord developer portal over here really quickly. And let's take a look at the embed limits. Okay, so 6,000 characters is the maximum amount of characters that you can have within an embed. But each subsection of the embed also has a limit, and we have extended past the value limit for a field. Okay, but why? How did we do that? See, we're only going to 1,000 characters, right? Well, if we make the value a preview, we're also adding in this string here. And 1,000 characters plus the length of this string is going to exceed the 1,024 character limit. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to reduce this to 500 because I think that's going to make it more visible anyway. It's just going to be, if we go too big, it's going to bulk up that embed and it's going to kind of defeat the purpose of it being a preview. So let's make it 500 characters. And let's rerun our bot once more. And there we go. Okay, so it did save the last time, but the reason it didn't update was because it was too large. So this means that our preview is working as well. Excellent, that's awesome. Okay, so all of the sections of our profile personality class are working and updating properly. So I think we're in business. Yeah, I think let's go ahead and end the video here for now. Next time, we're going to take a look at the at a glance section. And personally, that's my favorite because there's a lot of technicalities to it and there's a lot of intricacies to the code, and it's going to be a lot of fun to code. So, as you can tell, I'm repeating myself. So it's time to start the video, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot.